Well, hello everyone. Good day, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are. I'm Peel Stewart, author of the Dragon King Saga. This is my YouTube channel, and tonight for me, 7 p.m. Eastern, I have a fabulous guest, brilliant author. I enjoyed his book very much. I had the privilege of getting an adventure copy of Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard. He is one of the up and coming indie authors out there. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. The fantastic Kaden Love. How you doing today, Kate?
I'm doing wonderful. Really happy to be here. So thanks for having me on and excited to chat about whatever.
Yeah, I'm so honored that you come on. Backstage, we're just talking. Like, I wish I unfortunately I only had a chance to say hi to you briefly at Worldcon in Seattle. I wish we had more time to hang out together, but you know how that goes. It's always so busy for everybody. So
Oh yeah.
yeah. But it was an awesome experience. So there's so much I want to talk to you about. But I think I'd like to start off the conversation by asking you a bit about who and what are the break-ins?
Okay, yeah. This is something that's pretty funny that we hear a lot of people ask because they'll see the name thrown around. But it's a group of authors that it was initially started by Joshua Walker and Scott Palmer. That when we were all getting ready to debut, they were a couple of months out, and I think when I joined them, it was maybe like 2 months away from my debut. We're all indie authors that were looking to, break into the world. We wanted to help each other out as much as you can because as an indie author, the most of your experience and things you learn is all from things you hear from other authors, other experience. So that was the idea behind it, is that, we get a bunch of authors that are starting together and we share the information we learn. We help promote each other's books. We read them, review them, and so forth. So now it's gotten quite big. Like we have those two. We have Brian Wilson, Adrian Gibson, Z.S. Diamani, and just a good amount of people that we're always helping each other grow and learn. And I think that's one of the most valuable things about the indie community is even if you don't have a group like that, you just have people that you can always reach out to. And that was the idea behind it. So that's in essence what we are.
Wow. Okay. Well, I have a few more questions about this concept.
Yeah.
But quickly, I'm just gonna say hi to my wonderful friend Alicia from Birdie and Books. Hey, Alicia, how you doing? I call her my sister from another mother. We share the same birthday. She's awesome. Thanks so much, Alicia, for coming by. She's a fabulous booktuber. Check out her channel. I have the honor of she's doing an ongoing deep dive into my series with some fabulous tubers, including Epic, Tals, and Jen. So the next one for Book 5 Pack of Wolves is on the 19th, I believe, of September. So check out Alicia's channel and all she does in the book space. And thanks for coming by, my friend. Always good to see you. So yeah, so this group essentially is formed, and those are some for me. Those are big names in the indie sphere, right?
Yeah.
So you guys all get together. Now, I'm not saying there's necessarily criteria to. So was it mainly composed for authors who were starting out, or was it experienced authors, or what was the composition of the group?
Yeah. So we've been together for, I guess, like little over reaching around 2 years ish. But at the time, I don't think I know Z.S. Diamani had one of his books out, or at least a couple, but most of us hadn't even yet. So it was people on the verge of our debut. The idea was kind of 2024 debut authors, and I think it formed early on last year. So yeah, about a year and a half. And there wasn't any really specific criteria. It was just people that I think Josh and Scott looked promising. So they reached out to me, invited me in. And a lot of people are like, oh, do you guys have this like weird exclusive group? And it's not really that. The only reason we're not like, oh yeah, come join us, things like that, is just because there's so much value in having just a really close group of friends, which is what we've become. And I'm a part of many other wonderful communities like FanFi Addict and groups like that, where, they're more wide reaching, but this is more of a concentrated group where when someone asks you to help promote one of their posts, everybody can go in on it rather than just having an overwhelming abundance of things like that. And it's been really interesting for me to see what has become really close friendships from people all around the world. So, I felt that I was really good friends with Josh Walker and Adrian Gibson prior to Worldcon, but I'd never met them in person. So when I met them there, it was like we already knew each other so well, and it was just such a relaxed time. So it's really cool to hear people think that, these are bigger names out there, because at the start of it, we were just trying to get our feet stable. We were trying to figure things out. And I think for all of us, we've had a good amount of success. Nobody has had a bad experience, but some have just had, quite impressive debuts and continuing legacies thereon.
Wow, that is awesome. That's awesome. So, I mean, I'm a big advocate of writing groups. I certainly have been involved with a few of my own. What are some of the benefits for that kind of collaborative? It's almost like you guys are starting up together. You guys are coming up together. You're highs and lows, sharing experiences, mentorship, guidance, advice. But so can you talk about some of the benefits of doing something like that?
So I think, like you said, at the basis, writing, having friends that are interested in each other's books. So we're able to, even though so many of us are very busy, usually you'll have someone in the group that's willing to take an ARC or a beta read, or if not, someone that does have that. And one of the difficulties about indie publishers, I'm sure you're very aware of, is just how much the market is evolving. So if someone is very tapped into Amazon's algorithms and how they're changing, they can be like, hey guys, I found this article, or I found this information. This is what I'm going to try. And then they implement it and we see how it works. So like, for example, I don't do a ton of paid advertising, but I know some in our group that really work with Meta ads, and it's done very well for them. So when I need information on that, I go to them. I've had a lot of my success just with basic social media marketing, a lot with Instagram. So when people want to know kind of how to work the algorithm with that, they'll come to me. And those are, the basic, the marketing things. But if you look at it, a bunch of us are pretty much introverts. We spend a lot of our time sitting behind a computer and just spewing our thoughts there. And I think that that's why Worldcon, was kind of cathartic, because we were able to just really come together, and all the struggles people have been through, how difficult it is to publish, to write, and then the hard days when your sales aren't working out well, you have a group to support you with that, or when you lose the drive to write someday, or you have a really bad review, things like that. So there's just so many touching things, but I think the big things are writing craft, so important, and you have people to talk you through that, maybe materials they found useful, marketing, having a group of people that knows how to market in so many different ways, because there are so many different ways, so you need things, you go to them. And then just the moral support, having friends in the market where you can even just chat to about books you're reading, or just about life. There's so many times where we're not talking about writing at all. It's just about things going on, and we're helping support each other, because it is as simple as it is just sitting behind a computer and writing all day. It's difficult, and the whole emotional aspect, it's just a titan. I talk with my wife all the time about everything that's going on, but because this isn't something that she's doing every day, she doesn't quite understand it. But it's so valuable to have someone that really does understand what you're doing.
Absolutely. And like I said, just kudos to you all for forming this group. It seems so supportive, and obviously all of the authors you list, just phenomenal. I've heard nothing but great things about all their works. I mean, all their works happen to, for the most part, be on my TBR, and I hope to get to a lot of them in the coming months and years. But definitely, kudos to you all for all the success, and all I can say, just wishing you continued success, and having that support group definitely will only help sustain and elevate that success. So but I also want to touch about other support systems. You seem Very, very. You're a young cat. I mean, I'm an old graybeard. You're probably young enough to be my grandson. But you one thing that's always impressed me about you is that you seem so grounded and so mature. And I know that you seem to be extremely close to your wife, and you guys have a fabulous relationship. And you guys essentially have a booktube channel together. Can you talk a bit about that? How that all started? What made you want to kind of do it with your partner? Like, how'd that come into to be?
Yeah. So when I started writing at the end of college, and at that time, I've always been an avid reader, but when I really decided to commit to writing a book, that was the peak of it, and it's ever since remained. And my wife at the time was in school for animation, not animation. She wanted to do more of the storyboard, the 2D aspects of 3D movies, because she went to BYU, which is a school that feeds a lot of people into Pixar, and so she had that in her mind, and she went along and figured out that the business was a little more intense and competitive than she wanted. And when she kind of realized that was when I started writing. And when I was ready for her to illustrate my book cover, which she did, she really dove into fantasy and has since remained that. And so now she listens to audiobooks all the time, where I go back and forth between audio and reading. And she's been my book cover editor, and since changed her career to where now she is agented by a company that gets her just book cover deals. So that is her job now. Yeah. And so it's been really great. She does my covers, but she's also done it for a plethora of random other books. And it just got to the point where we were both always reading. She does romantic books, but not complete romantasy. But we do read a lot of the same. And that's the idea that, I was making a lot of book reviews, and I was like, we should go ahead and make a YouTube channel. And if you can see right here, the play button actually isn't for our channel. She had a very large art channel, about 200,000 subscribers. And so, yeah, she knew she knew how to work YouTube. Side business, she does videography and photography. And so all I had to do was come up with the ideas. She does all the edit, and that's why things look very pretty. So all it was is, I just had to convince her to do it, and we've done it, and it's been really fun. And like I said, how we do enjoy the same books, but sometimes I tend into the more heavy and complex. She likes sometimes more of the softer ones. We felt that we just reached a very wide audience, and so we went ahead and did it, and it's been going well. It's just something really fun for us to do. Nothing as big as certain channels out there, but we've just been having a lot of fun, and it gives us sometimes reasons to read certain books or to make a little book club around it. So that's essentially what's happened with all of it.
That is awesome. So many more aspects I want to ask you about, but I quickly want to pop up. We have another guest in the audience. It is Jeff Brown. Hey, buddy. What's going on? How you doing? Thanks for coming out. Brilliant artist. Speaking of cover design and cover artists, one of the best right there. I was privileged at Worldcon to get a piece of his some cover art from an edition of Gardens of the Moon, Book 1, Malazan, Book of the Fallen.
Yes.
Wow, spectacular. I wish I had it handy. I didn't know he was coming, but that's going up on my wall somewhere. Jeff, and just what a wonderful human being. Jeff is just awesome, but brilliant artist. Has done some artists for some pretty big covers. So fantastic. So great to have you, Jeff. Thanks so much for coming out. So Kaden, it sounded all positive. It's just fantastic. So what's it like to have to do all these projects, all these endeavors with your partner?
Yeah, it's amazing. she is really ambitious about it, and I like to think that, you know, I have the story aspect and the writing aspect of that down, but you know, I wonder what my book would look like without her, because she helps with the internal like in Elegy I have chapter headings, and she helps like create the bookmarks and all the Kickstarter little graphics and stuff. She just helps with that and has become so passionate about it that, you know, it's not only that she's just a trusting spouse that believes that I can make this into something, because I do want to make it a full-time career, but she is just full throttle going through with it. And I don't know, it's really cool to see how much writing and books have become such a part of our life and the community it's connected us to. So even though she came to Worldcon not as an attendee because she stayed with a local friend, she came out to some of the dinners and places with us sometimes, and everybody just kind of knew her in there from, you know, maybe they knew her from the YouTube channel, or they know that she does my art. And of course, I was super excited for her to meet Jeff, because, you know, Jeff's one of my favorite fantasy artists, and they were kind of able to see how things kind of just been amazing. You know, I can go to all these fun adventures with her. Dragonsteel Nexus, Brandon Sanderson's convention, is local to me, so she is going to be there with me. And like, we did some farmers markets this year, and because she's done some Sanderson fan art and things like that, I sell my book, she sells her prints, and it's so perfect because, you know, not people aren't always willing to just go up and approach authors that just have different books, and I'm sure you know. But you know, if we have a big wall that has Brandon Sanderson fan art, they're like, oh, there's that. And they come to that, and then she's like, hey, this is my husband, he wrote these books, I did the covers, and it just works so well. And on a fair, like, basic money aspect, it's, you know, I think all authors just love to have art of their work, but it is so expensive to get quality stuff, and it's just so invaluable to have her there to do that with me.
That is incredible. I mean, I love to see personally. You know, my wife is my business manager, and she does so many things behind the scenes to make everything work in this authorpreneur thing. I just love to see couples, you know, where they're both involved to some degree in the writing business. It just really warms my heart. And clearly, you guys are doing a phenomenal job, and you know, you're so close. And I just love watching your videos. It's just really heartwarming, right, to see that relationship and the bond, and you know, and obviously it's working so well. So kudos to you on having that. I think it's a blessing because, you know, some authors aren't as fortunate to have to have their partner as part of their business endeavors. So yeah, that's congratulations. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we say a quick shout out also in the audience to Rob Lay. Hey Rob, how's it going? A brilliant author of the Path Letter series. I haven't read his work yet. Another one of those on the TBR, and hope to get to it at some point. But awesome fella. Thanks so much, Rob, for coming out to support Kaden. And he says, Rob says, books are a labor of love for you both. It's beautiful stuff. Yep. And of course, for you as well, Rob. Yeah, it's an awesome thing. It's an awesome thing. But once again, thanks for coming out. So if let's get in a bit into the work. So of course, I have only read book one, Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard. It is part of a series, Paladins of the Harvest. I was, you know, it sounds horrible to say stunned, because I didn't go in with any particular expectations, but you know, it was fabulous. And you know, I think for me, we're talking just a little bit about it backstage. It was right up my alley for so many reasons. Number one, the prose was great. The prose is really good. Was really good. And then you know, my friends all tease me that I'm a prose snob. If you know, if there's such a thing, so that certainly appealed to me. But I think on top of that, because that's my gateway into a book, right? It's the writing itself. But on top of that, it had some of the compelling themes that specifically that draw me into a book almost no matter what. And any book that has religious themes in it, will automatically draw me in. But before I get into, my thoughts on the book and questions for you, can you tell, for those of you who haven't read the book, can you tell us a bit about, tell the audience a bit what it's about?
Yeah. So, Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard, I know it's a mouthful, is the first book in my Paladins of the Harvest series. The second book, Duet of Pernicious Eels, came out in February, and I'm currently working on the third. It is an epic political fantasy about a land where organ harvesting is required for magic. So the basis of it is that 10 years prior to the start of the book series, certain children started to be born with a third intestine, and they later discovered that this leads to magical abilities, some causing superhuman strength, others leading to shape-shifting abilities. And 5 years down the line, so 5 years prior to the start of the book, certain individuals started to experiment, and they harvested these organs from infants and placed them into adults, and figured out that these grafts, these organ grafts, led to the abilities being manifest in adults. So we get to the present period of the book, where there's a great division between between some of the 6 kingdoms in there, we can say, where some people believe that this is absolutely necessary for the progression of society, that, allowing children just to grow up with these and not knowing what they'll become is too dangerous. Whereas the others believe that, this is a given thing to these children by the gods, that they deserve to grow up with these organs. And so that starts the divide, and there is a great event that takes place that kind of sparks off a war, and that is where the book begins.
Wow, yeah, that's a fantastic elevator pitch there. You really, of course, as the author, your work best. You summed it up exceptionally well. Definitely. So now it's time to delve in a bit more, but I just want to quickly give a shout out to the awesome Ganesh. What's up, Pips? Thanks for coming out. Yeah, as you can see, the WorldCon gang is here. A brilliant reviewer, wonderful gent. Had the privilege of meeting Ganesh at WorldCon as well, spending a bit of time with him. He's just awesome. So thanks so much, my friend, for coming out to support Kaden, saying hi. Looking forward to the next time I get to see you and talk to you. So, but always great to see you in the chat. So, I mean, what a brilliant and very, I know the struggle for authors, of course, is that, nothing is truly original. Like, something's derivative of something else. It's rare to find an idea that's totally never been explored or done before. But I found your work to be exceptionally original, unique. So what was the inspiration for this book? I mean, because frankly, let's be frank, it's a pretty, it was really well done, but it's a controversial topic for sure. So what was the inspiration behind, what made you want to write a book like this?
Yeah, there were 2 big main things. So I actually started off world building with the cultures. So people that haven't read it, the 6 kingdoms, I call them courts in there. So the 6 courts all worship a certain god, and their entire way of living centers around an ideal, a virtue. So some people value obedience and the law over everything. Some people value charity and love over everything. And so I went with that, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because like you were saying, religious themes are something that always resonate with me in books. A Song of Ice and Fire is one of my favorite series, but I felt that that was one where any religious people were kind of looked down on as being fools, and I wanted something that kind of changed that. So I had that as the basis, and as I mentioned, I wrote this in college during my last year of nursing school. So I had a lot of medicine on my mind, and the human GI system has really fascinated me, and that's actually the area I work in for my day job. And so the initial idea for a magic system was that humans, when they eat meat, plants, or whatever, that they extract the life force that was in that before, And that gives them the magic. So it's magic through eating. And so I was looking at that and I'm like, okay, what kind of magic system would that require? Oh, you need a thing in the organs that digests it in a magical way. And that led to the magical organ. And even though the idea of magical digestion is still in my books, it's not really talked about much. It's much more about just that specific organ. And I honestly don't remember the thought that came to me when I was like, okay, we're going to have this all about a controversy of organ harvesting and transplants. But I always love when people say my books are unique because that's something I really go for. So the organ harvesting and transplant system is always something that, you know, it might deter some people, but is very shocking to a lot of people. And it's something that you read the first page, you know, it's about, you read the premise of the book, you get an idea. And for a lot of people, it's really eye catching. That's kind of what I go for. And so I went with that. And then I just started to form the characters, and then the whole thing started to work its way out. And I wanted a moral dilemma in the premise of it because I don't think I was really going for morally gray characters. I wanted characters that were believable. And while you read it, you definitely kind of side. Most people side with one side over the other. But I did want you to see, because I feel like good villains are written in a way where, you know, even the worst people in the world see what they are doing as the right thing. And rather than just having this big, like, evil guy, I want to be evil for the sake of being evil. I wanted these believable people that have an argument, even if they are flawed in that. And so I went with that. And then came the premise of the book.
Wow. Again, it was really spectacular. You went for eye-catching, my friend. Believe me, you achieved it. You had me at when I read the synopsis, like, I have to read this, right? This is just sounds so right up my alley. And of course it was. So we're going to get back to that, of course, because there's a lot more to talk about there. But I do quickly want to shout out in the audience, we have some fabulous people, including the awesome Joe Bourne. Hey, Joe, what's up, buddy? I talk about brilliant author of the Hybrid Helix series, Whistle Ascending, the first book, which I read was wonderful. I had the privilege of having Joe on the channel as well. Check out that interview. Joe is a great human being. Another person I got to meet at Worldcon for the first time. So another highlight for me. So thanks, buddy, for coming out. Wishing you all the best as always. And we have the amazing Jared, the fancy thinker. Another great booktuber today. What's up, peeps? Says hello there. He says, nice premise, Kaden. So you might have just got yourself another person ready to dive in there. Jared does fabulous reviews. I'm so humbled that he's done reviews of my books in John King Saga on his YouTube channel. Check that out, and all of his content. He is just amazing. Brilliant fellow. A really interesting guy, too. Check out my interview with Jared, and you get to learn a lot more about him and his background. He is a fascinating chat. So, but okay, so you really explore a topic that can really incite discussion. And you also present the conflict surrounding it. And there's a lot of political tensions, political violence. There's a lot packed in there into the book, and it's all very, very well done. What has been the reaction to how you've depicted or displayed those elements of the book that are might be somewhat considered dicey? What's been the reaction?
It was pretty interesting initially. And I guess I do have to mention, so Sarah Chorn is my editor.
Oh, brilliant.
And I love everything she's done. And my first book with her, Elegy, it's completely different than what it was before. I mean, of course the basis is there, but it was twice as long, twice as bad. My prose was as purple as you can get. And I just needed to learn a lot. So it was almost like I rewrote the book. But there's some big controversial topics. I think a lot of people relate the deals with infants to a lot of modern issues, which I'm not trying to make any stance on, because I want this book to be read by everyone. And then we have assassinations in there, and that initial one was big and shocking. And she was really really good at helping me see it from like an outside perspective. You know, I'd had some beta readers, but seeing it from more of like almost a sensitivity reader's point, saying, okay, this is good, but it might, you know, it might cause the wrong reactions in certain people. And working around those things is just something that was really eye-opening to see, because you didn't really expect that when you're first writing. You know, you're just like, oh, I'm writing it for me, like it. But there's little tweaks that you can do just to make sure more people enjoy it and that you're not really offending a lot of people. But yeah, that's the thing that I wanted to tread the line carefully of, you know, I don't want to cause real life trauma for people by bringing up certain topics that are difficult. But I also do want, you know, those visceral reactions for readers that are reading and they're like, no, that happened. You know, I want to be that author that gets a message from the reader that says, I love the book. I hate that you did this, just because they fell so in love with a character or something like that. So yeah, I think it was just working around things like that and recognizing what is more of a shock factor, what is more of a good plot device for things like that. Because the basis of the book, I did want a bit of a shock to draw in attention. And like I said, it is a very political book, which isn't saying, you know, it's politically aligned with any way, but that it's more about the people and the politics of it. That's why I love A Song of Ice and Fire so much, because battles are enjoyable every now and then, but I love the characters like Tyrion Lannister or Glocta in Joe Abercrombie's books that are just these masterminds that pull off these big plots and twists and things like that. And that's what I was really going for. So yeah, people that read it, if you want action, there is action. But it's much more about the people and the difficult decisions they have to make and recognizing the big flaws that are in them, even though they're trying to be good people.
Yeah, and I think that was exceptionally well done. I think the emotional depth, the psychological depth of with some of the choices that the characters had to make, the way sometimes thinking changed or stances changed or evolved to some degree by the conclusion of the book. And I know it's a series, but you could see you could even see the potential seeds of evolution being planted in certain characters, how they could change other or might not change. So I thought that was really, really well done. Just some quick comments. JCM says, yeah, I think PL knows a little bit about characters doing some bad things for good reasons, or what they think. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, that's and he says, has excellent taste. Thank you, sir, because your book is fabulous. Just one quick shout out to Lucas Clay. Hey, buddy, thanks for coming out. Thanks for coming out, man. Awesome person, and always the support is wonderful. And Rob says, Kaden broke my heart multiple times. Yep, there was some really emotional, like pulling on emotional heartstrings. Yep, that definitely had it, and that was another really incredible aspect of the book. Just another quick shout out to the awesome bookkeeper, Epic Taz. Hey, buddy, what's going on, Epic? Thanks for coming out to support. As I said, that deep dive into my series that Alicia is hosting on her channel, Epic will be there. Can't wait to catch up with him on the 19th. And yep, Kate brings out all the stars. David Hopkins. Oh, excuse me. What's going on, buddy? Two of my favorite in the author news. Great to see you, my friend. Thanks for coming out and supporting. That's amazing. And yep, he says hi, and then Epic says, fan of both. Thank you, sir, and big fan of yours, of course, as well. Epic has some of the most incredible graphics you're ever going to see.
I know. I love
it. If you haven't checked out Epic's YouTube channel, yeah, be ready to be amazed. It just the storyboards he does, it is on another level. It's next level. So definitely check out his stuff. So you in this book as well, you definitely, it's and I don't think it's gratuitous. The violence certainly isn't gratuitous. It's how did you what was your thought process in approaching to handle these topics with the appropriate like sensitivity, but yet being, you know, being blunt about the realities of harvesting, right? Something that's very polarizing. How did you go about that?
Yeah, I think just knowing when to use gore and not to use it just for shock value. So when people hear that my book involves the harvesting of infants' organs, they're either like, "Oh, that sounds so metal! Like I got to read that," or there's also a lot of people that
Yeah,
are like, "Okay, I can't do that." Um, and I always let people know, read the first chapter, and that's as descriptive as it gets. Because, you know, if you haven't read the book, it starts off with the main character, Fenmir,
yes,
one of the main characters, who just finished harvesting, and he's against the process, but he's sitting there, kind of at the surgeon's table, just really loathing what he's done. It doesn't go into the description of the acts. You know, I don't need to talk about the movement of the scalpel or things like that, but it's done with a lot of respect. And, you know, when it does talk about the blood of the situation, it's to show you that that character feels that it's so vile. And
yeah,
later on in the books, you know, when we get to acts that require more violence, it's always, you know, I will put those descriptions in there when I want you to feel disgusted as the characters
yeah,
do. Um, because the way that I do write to an adult audience, but I always tell people when they come up, I write adult for complexity. Um,
yeah,
you know, there is violence, but it is nothing compared to a lot of the more gratuitous violent books out there. Um, but I'm treating my audience as their adults. This is very complex. We're dealing with complex topics. And, you know, if we have a well-read teenager that wants to read it, he can. It's nothing that his parents are going to get mad at him for reading, but it's, you know, it's not something for some kid to pick up and just go there. And this book was difficult because it was really dancing that line between
yeah,
that. Because one of my biggest inspirations is Brandon Sanderson, and I was really writing to his audience. And,
yeah,
you know, when I sell my books at Dragonsteel, his convention, that is my target audience. And you have plenty of people there that are, you know, fans of Berserk and really dark
yeah,
things, but most people are there just for that Brandon Sanderson level. And that's kind of what I was going for. You know, it doesn't get much gorier than some of the things that happen in the Stormlight Archive, and there are some dark things that happen there. But like I said, I think that anytime you're dealing with something such as infants, it's just knowing how to do it with respect, with delicacy. Um, whereas in war, you can be a little more descriptive because, you know, like things like that happen in Lord of the Rings. Um,
yeah.
and one of the most important things I think is just having readers outside looking at what I'm writing and offering the critique before it goes out to the wider audience, getting some people that might be a little more squeamish with that and seeing, okay, what triggers them? What do they find interesting? And where is that golden, oh, this is horrible, but I love it?
Wow. Yes. Well, epic, epic asks for, you know, my taste. Would you like to? Absolutely epic. This is right up your alley. You are someone who appreciates the darkness, and also when endings, and of course, this is just the beginning of a series. And Kaden has other works, but you know, you're there about the bittersweetness of an ending and of a book. This book is for you, my friend. So definitely one to put on your TBR. It is very good. So, and of course, it's just the beginning for me because I'm just getting into the series. So, I, I want to say that because this is the beginning, obviously I know, and you know, you don't know what an author has planned, but as the series goes on, I know for me personally, I'm hoping to hear more about the essentially the superhuman recipients, and a bit more about how can I put this? The potential for good, potentially, that these harvests can do. But that's just my personal, you know, what I would love to see. But there was so much to love about this book, and yeah, of course, the subject matter, not for the faint of heart, right? You know, it really hits hard, right? Especially when you deal with children, right? That's
Mhm.
for most people, that's something that's very, very dear to them. And but again, I think it was definitely a book worth reading, and it makes sense that someone as brilliant and who writes as dark and compelling stuff as Sarah Chorn, who's probably one of the most well-known editors out in the indie space. It's no surprise that there are elements of that I saw in your book that was just like, wow, right?
Mhm.
Because obviously it all starts with you and the author, but she is a brilliant editor, so
Oh
no
yeah.
question there. Yeah, no question there. And what was it like to work with the Sarah Chorn?
It was amazing. So, if you didn't know how I found her, I'm sure you know Bookborn and Zach Argyle. They run the Indie Fantasy Fund, and I actually won it with my first chapter
Oh,
of Elegy.
congratulations.
Thank you. And
Congratulations.
it was so great to know. Like that was the first like I'd had a couple random people read the book, online that I'd interacted with, but having that show the value there was just so amazing. And talking with Zach about it later, he's like, "Yeah, we loved it, but we need to give it to someone that like can deal with something that needs a delicate touch with how
Yeah.
dark it gets." And so working with Sarah has been so amazing. The first book, it took I think about 13 months, like through the whole editing process. She was so wonderfully patient and just so great. And it was such a relief because there's so much work there. And so, like, honestly, every time I would get an email for her, it was almost like I was dreading. I'm like, oh, what problem did I cause this time? Whereas, like, when I gave her book 2, she didn't have any of those big complaints. She's like, wow, it's so amazing to see how much you've grown. Her only like real developmental edit for book 2 was like, hey, I'd love to see a chapter about this. So I added it. And that's how it's been with Tooth Sucker, my cyberpunk book. It was basically just line and copy edits. So she, like, I have to give so much credit to her for helping form Elegy because she really just turned it from a very mediocre book into one that I'm very proud of.
Wow. Yeah. And again, just an absolutely fabulous editor, one of the best out there. But and her writing is stupendous. Like I've only read one book by her, but it was marvelous. So yeah, check out Sarah Chorn's work, and she's had her fingers on a lot of the brilliant authors out there. A lot of them, I think, would hold her in high regard and would give her a lot of credit for what she's done to their manuscripts to make them, amazing books. So definitely, Sarah Chorn is a force to be reckoned with. So you've written book 1. So now, can you elaborate a bit about the plans for the series you've also written? And this is where I wanted to talk to you about, in general, direction where your writing is going. Now, I can't say that Elegy gave me. I mean, there were parts of it that gave me a bit of a more of a horror type vibe, like. But you've done Duet of Pernicious Eels, but you wrote, I believe it's a novella, Tooth Sucker.
So it's a novel, but it's shorter.
Oh, it's a novel. Okay, so apologies. What's yours? A novel? So just the vibe, the cover for sure, just gives you like horror vibes. You've also written another novella. I think it's Beast Call. Is that the name of it?
Yep.
Yeah. So you've written, but the two. I want to talk about Tooth Sucker. So would you say that there's elements of this series that delve into more the horror side of fantasy, like fantasy horror, or blending genres, subgenres?
Yeah, I think a bit. So when I got really into writing, I also got into a bit of From Software games like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, and I just love the aspect of these big monstrous titans of creatures and things like that. And that kind of bleeds into
Yeah, sorry, I frozen there for a second. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that like in monster horror, that kind of aspect of it, I do touch on a bit. And when I went into Tooth Sucker, I did look into more of writing horror in it because just with vampires, it's something that's going to be there. And I always find horror fascinating in writing because, I've never been the type of one that has been scared by a book. I love Stephen King, and I honestly haven't read too many of his horror books, but just the idea of causing suspense with that. And
Yeah.
I think that in the aspects where I do get close to horror, it's not for body horror or shock value, things like that. It's to build suspense and things like that. Which I think you do touch on a bit in book 2.
Okay, well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. So I plan to read, all of your works. But I definitely, when I saw, I remember being on Twitter and I saw Teacher the cover when you were, it was like, oh, okay, like that looks like it's going to be, again, maybe the timing to spooky season, get in the mood for some horror would be, potentially right up my alley. So Rob says, "Yep, monster horror, yeah, the best kind." Rob says so. So you've gotten, I mean, in a short time, Kaden, you've gotten 4 books out. Is that correct? You've gotten LG do a Two Sucker and Beast Call, and you forgive me on the release. But I think it's all been the last 2 years that you've gotten all these out. Is that correct?
Yeah. So LG, my debut came out in January of last year. And then I released Beast Call a couple months after. Duet came out in February, and then Two Sucker in April.
Well, it's quite prolific. So I'm wondering, first of all, are you? It sounds like you're aspiring to be a full-time writer, but you're not full-time right now. But that's pretty prolific, in a short space of time. So how do you find the time juggling all the things you do and job and family and all that? How do you fit your writing, all that writing in?
Yeah. So I mean, I always have people ask this a lot because I am very disciplined in things, and I think a lot of that comes from running. So if you didn't know, I'm a marathon runner too. So it's one of my, just the way that I live. I wake up in the morning, and every day except for Sunday, I just go on a long run, usually around 7 miles. And people are like, "Oh, how do you do that every day?" It's like, I just don't give myself a choice. I do it. And that's kind of how I treat writing. And I've learned to accept days, where maybe I get home from work and we have a family event and I just don't get a lot in, but I want to have some writing done every day. So when I'm drafting, I like to have at least 1,000 words done every day. And I recognize that to sit down and do this, it takes time. So actually a lot of my time, I do take public transport to work. So I'll be writing on my phone a little. I've got a little keyboard that I'll use during my work breaks. And so I can usually get around 300 to 400 words in at work, get home, finish it off. And if it's just a slow day, like today, my wife is having some friends over to watch a movie, I'll probably get hopefully around like 1,200, 1,500, something like that.
Yeah.
And I find a lot, the reason that Two Sucker was able to come out so quick after is because I find most of my joy in writing in the creation of the story, the drafting. So while I sent the day I sent, I guess not the exact time. So I went on a family trip last year to Oregon in August, and on the road I started drafting Tooth Sucker because I really wanted to. I was super close to finishing my second draft of Duet, and so when we got to the place we were staying, I sent Duet to Sarah. And I just started drafting right away because I knew it was going to take 1 to 2 months or so for her to do that. And, I don't want to just sit down with idle hands. I really like to keep, the activity moving my brain. And I'm very much a mood reader. So I wanted to kind of express that in writing and felt like I wanted to do some sci-fi. I was really into cyberpunk at the time. And so I went and did that. And it worked out so well that when, after I finished the editing, the final edits from Sarah, I was able to kind of time it well with sending her Tooth Sucker. So things just worked out really well with that. And so, yeah, I think a lot of my productivity comes from, you really utilizing downtime. So even though I'm a victim to scrolling social media a bunch, I try to, when I'm on my phone, like if it's just me waiting at like, a train station, things like that, that I'm either reading an ebook for study or I'm just writing, because I use Google Docs, even though it's not the best shiniest thing. It's just super nice where if I have like 10 minutes, throw in some like ambient music and just write a couple paragraphs.
Yeah.
So that's honestly how I do most of it. And yeah, it's just the day in, day out, being able to just recognize that, if I can set down, write this many a day for like a couple months, that like right now, the current project I'm working on, I'm hoping to have it done by November. And it's just like, oh, November's really close. Like Halloween stuff is coming out. And if I keep this up, I could have a book done by that time. And that's just so cool to me. And so just keep the motivation working there. And so just always working. And with my wife working at home, doing illustration stuff, she doesn't have a strict schedule. So a lot of times it'll just be us hanging out in the office. I'll be writing, she'll be drawing. We can chat while we're doing that or whatever. And so, yeah, just finding the time. And I've just been really lucky to have a job that allows some free time, because I don't work Wednesdays or weekends. So like Wednesdays are complete writing days, business days. And now it's just the idea of really keeping up that grind until I can make this something that can support a family.
Well, that's awesome. I so admire, and people I think in the audience are blown away by the discipline. Epic says, "Yep, I need that type of discipline in my life. Glad to know it's possible." And Jeff says, "Yeah, get it done." And you definitely sold Epic. He says, "Just bought it."
Oh, thank you, man.
So excited to read it. So I'm sure that he'll have a lot to say about it. I think it's a fantastic book. So hope you enjoyed Epic as much as I did. So there's a couple questions here, and I think we'll go to Jeff's first in order. So Jeff asked, do you have any tips for quickly getting in the right mental state for writing when you're out of the house? He says, I really struggle with that, he says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely understand. And there's a lot of times where I just kind of have to force my mind through it. Because even there's a lot of times where you just don't want to write. I'm much more of a morning writer. In the evening, if I'm writing, it's more difficult. The thoughts aren't flowing as well. So I think first is recognizing when it works well. So usually I get to work anywhere from like a half hour to an hour early. And I like to just go find a secluded area. I turn on like almost just white noise, like ambient music. And I'm able to zone out everything and just sit there and write. And I always divide it up into things too. So, it's a really good day if I can sit down, bust down 1,000 words in just a single setting, because usually it'll be like 300 words to 700 words, take a break, come back and do the rest. So I think, a lot of it is just learning to figure out what kind of brings you in the zone. And for me, it's that being alone, canceling things out, and recognizing that, it doesn't, especially if you're drafting, it doesn't have to be your best writing in that moment. But there are definitely times where it's like, okay, this is a delicate scene. This is something I really want to provoke a certain response in the reader. So I need to do this one at home when I'm sitting down and very focused. And let's say, I'm doing that. Let's say I'm writing in the Paladin series. I've got a scene that's very pivotal for Fenrir that needs complete focus, but maybe for Yetrick, he's just going and kind of having some chats with some people. I'll go and skip ahead, write his, come back to Fenrir later.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite things about having multiple point of views. Two Suckers, a single point of view. But I think, just figuring out what mental space works best and kind of figuring out how to channel that when you're outside.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice there. That's fantastic. Jeff also adds, also, how often do you think about your book during the day?
A lot, very much so. And like, I am very much like actual OCD. So my mind just really fixates on things, and writing has actually helped me a ton with this. Whereas rather than worrying about a plethora of concerns that really burden me, my mind can just focus on writing almost at an obsessive way, but it's, you know, it's kind of healthy in an aspect. So most of my writing time where I think about it, I know a lot of people will say like, oh, I'll go on walks and just think about stuff like that. I listen to audiobooks while I run. And so that'll actually help kind of churn thoughts. And sometimes I'll just pause my audiobook and just sit and think while I'm running. And throughout the day, I'll be pondering about the next few things I need to do. And so I honestly say that I never have writer's block because I always am thinking about my book and know the next few things I need to hit. If it's writer's block, it's because I don't know how to solve a certain issue, maybe a couple chapters down the line, because I'm not the biggest plotter, but I do have a general outline and I know the next few steps. So like the one I'm working on right now, I know the steps I need to hit to reach the end of the novel. And the next 2 chapters are like in my mind fresh. I just need to put them to paper. If I am at a point where I kind of just feel like disgusted with my phone, need to throw it to the side, I'll just have like a sticky note with me and I'll just be writing down thoughts. And then when I get home, I'll plug it into my outline. So yeah, sometimes it's even just as helpful as that. If you have a quiet moment, you're not doing anything, having a little notebook or a sticky note where you can just write things you want to hit. And that really gets my thoughts churning. Yeah, I prefer writing electronically, but I do enjoy physical note taking sometimes. Even if I don't refer to those notes at all, it just kind of helps to get my mind working with that. So,
yeah, no, I agree.
Almost
Definitely.
always, I guess, is my answer.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think for most of us as authors, it's somewhat of a mini obsession that we're thinking about writing constantly, and it's always somewhere in the back of our mind in a day that there's rarely a day that would go by that you don't think about writing, even if you're not writing at all. So, you know, but I find that having those mental breaks, like even if you don't write much one day, that's okay, right? Because, you know, typically you might be more inspired the next day. So, but so Epic, who is also planning to write himself. So he was just asking, so you do two drafts before you send it for developmental editing. So is that your process, Kaden?
So my debut was multiple drafts, just because that one, I think it's different for everyone because you're trying to figure it out. Some people don't publish their first book. I did, but it was different than what I first had. So, you know, rather than like writing it, making it a trunk novel and moving on to the next, I really focused on polishing that one up. But now my current process is I'll write a book. I actually give a lot of attention to the first draft. So the second one isn't too much of a rewrite. It's pretty clean by the time I get to it. And the more I write, the less it like damage control it is. So yeah, I'll write one draft, I'll read it through, maybe rewrite a couple of scenes or like sentences, and then I'll send it to my beta readers. And by that time, you know, it's a readable book. After one draft, it's iffy. Book draft 2, it's readable. They help pick out like the big grammatical problems that they see, or I always just have them point out things they liked, so I know what to work on, like use in the future, things that they didn't like, and then things they found confusing. I think that's most important. And then I'll send it to my editor, and depending on how much work she wants me to do on that, it'll kind of change my thing. But recently it's only been a lot of line and copy editing. So I'll go through with a third draft utilizing those final edits, and then I'll send it to my ARC readers while I do proofreading, so that my ARC readers know that, yeah, there might be a couple typos in there, but that's just part of the thing.
Yeah.
And I have plenty of wonderful ARC readers too that help me out with that. They'll just be like, hey, I noticed this page, this, whatever. So honestly, I get about 4-ish total drafts, but each one has less work. So like, and that is all dependent on the editor. But so, you know, like draft 1, draft 2, lots of polishing up, draft 3, depending on how much my editor does, and then draft 4 is just the tiniest little fixes.
Yeah. I have a very similar process, so yeah, it makes sense. So, and Epic, just want to say, can't wait to read your stuff again. Can't wait to see what you come up with. I know it's going to be Brilliant. So, Rob also just thanks again for coming by. Rob, he says he's got to run and have a great day. So thanks a lot for coming by. So quickly, as we're winding down, Caden, you've been so generous with your time. I want to respect it. So what if you can share anything? You might not be able to because we get the secret stuff that writers can't always share their projects. Is there anything that you can share that we can expect that's coming out from you in the near future? You said November that you may not be able to talk about it, but is there anything you can talk about that's coming out, or give us any hints about what to expect from you in the future? Sorry, you there? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we're back. Okay, good. Yeah. So I actually sent the sequel to Toothsucker to Sarah about a week ago. So that is the next release from me. Really optimistically hoping for December, maybe January, depends on her end. And then I have about 50,000 words down on the third book in the Paladin series. That one I do plan to finish as a trilogy, but I do love the world, so I think it'd be fun to revisit later as like a 10 years later, 20 years later, something like that. And then the current book that I'm working on, I've actually been posting daily reels about it because this is one I might try querying, just because I've been able to have a lot of good connections with authors that are traditionally published, and just think about maybe doing a referral or something like that. Regardless, it'll be published, but it's a take on the pitches. It's The Godfather meets Pokemon. So I grew up huge fan of Pokemon. I loved it so much, and so I think that I kind of want to tap in that nostalgia, along with one of my recent favorite reads has been Fondalee's The Greenbone Saga.
Oh, excellent. Yes, excellent.
Yeah, and so I think that a lot of the drama and the politics that come with that, or in The Godfather, was a really fun backdrop. And this was one, like, it was an idea I had while reading Jade City, and I was actually preparing to go back to Paladins 3, which I'd kind of set aside while I wrapped up the sequel to Toothsucker. But this idea was just like churning, and I just had to let it go. So that one, it'll probably be a bit of a shorter one, kind of like Toothsucker is, maybe around 80 to 100K words. And then I'll get back to finish Paladins and then go back to Toothsucker, because that series I'm hoping to do about 5 or so books.
Wow, that sounds awesome. Well, that's good. Very excited for your work, Caden. For those of you who are already fans of Caden's work, looks like there's lots to look forward to. Just a quick shout out. Speak of Mr. Walker. Hey, says the Love Doctor in the house, and so he can't stay, but just come by to say hi, fam. Thanks so much, Josh. Awesome human being. Thanks for coming by. And you got Epic Intrigued and The Godfather meets Pokemon. As we like Golden Compass.
We'll have to see.
Have to see. So I guess we have to check it out. Epic when it comes out. So. But yeah, so Kate, it's been so amazing getting to know you, getting to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining. It's just been such a fabulous chat. I just want to give you the opportunity to, let everyone know as we finish off where we can buy your books. Do you do author signed copies? Is that your website, social media, stuff? Anything else you'd like to say to promote yourself or spread the word out about where to follow you on social media or where to get your books and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to find out where all my books are, my website is kadenrlove.com. But if you can't remember that, Kaden Love Author is my username on pretty much everything. On Instagram, there's an underscore after author, but it should pop up anyways. I have the link in my bio thing. So yeah, I do offer signed copies on my website. And other than that, you can get books pretty much anywhere. Amazon is always easy. And my Paladins of the Harvest series is also on Audible.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, so audiobook fans, you can also check it out there. So, I think, The Break-Ins is an amazing name, but I definitely think you're also a breakout. because
Thank you.
your work is growing in popularity. A lot of people are talking about it, causing a lot of buzz. So just congrats on all the success again. I wish you nothing but continued success and same success. I know that's going to happen. So I can't wait to delve more into your work. So
Thank you. It means a lot.
well, for me, the shameless self-promotion stuff, I'm PL Stewart. This is my channel, John Kingdom Saga. The website, plstewart.com. You can find me here on this channel. Also, the Page Chewing series with my awesome partner, Taylor, from May Between the Pages under the Page Chewing umbrella, where we also do interviews there. Bit of a hiatus from that for now, but we will get back in the saddle in time. But you can check out, in the meantime, my 6 Elemental interviews with awesome creatives such as Kaden. For the books, it's plstewart.com. 5 books out now in the John Kingdom Saga series of a planned 7-book series. Most recent one, A Pack of Wolves, published in 2025, and A Black Dragon on Red, expected in 2026. And finally, quick, the last bit of shameless self-promotion for those of you interested in the fantastic technology. I have a story in here, Shape Rules the World's 5. Some brilliant authors in here, MJ Kuhn, etc. My fantasy here is kind of fantasy horror. It's set about it's a few centuries before the events of my main series. So check this out for the anthology, and the brilliant authors are part of it. Kaden, if you'd like an arc, happy to send it to you. If you want a sample of, though, delving into my 500-page book, you can get a quick short story. And there's really some awesome stories in that. So yeah, I'll flip you an arc for sure. So Jared, thanks again for coming out. Thank you so much to everyone. Kaden certainly brought out quite the audience tonight. Thanks so much, everyone who joined the live and commented and interacted and had questions for Kaden. And for everyone who's going to watch this on the replay, you are what makes this type of long-form content amazing. Long live long-form content. Don't care what anyone says. It is fabulous because you get to meet amazing people like Kaden and get to know more about them and their work. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So, everyone, thanks so much again for joining. Thanks to our wonderful guest, Kaden, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye now. Good night.